Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us again on the Build It Better podcast. I'm your host, Robert Johnson, and today is part 2 of our discussion with Joe Doxey, FRAMECAD Division Manager with Douglas Colony. If you didn't get enough numbers in the first part, you're going to get more numbers in the second part. Staggering. And you know what? It should be some thought-provoking stuff that you take action. Leave this podcast episode today and take action. Let's jump out to part 2.
Right, I think that technology is a big deal, but it is way ahead of time. We're wanting to be in discussions with designers early as possible. It avoids a whole bunch of headaches that they're going to have with BIM modeling and all those things that are happening right now. I think the more and more we're looking at, especially in the big commercial construction industry, mid-rise buildings, everyone's wanting to BIM their building. It's great to sit in a room and say, hey, we're flying through this model, and none of our MEPs, they're all going through the header of a wall, of a door.
Right.
Okay, well, can we reroute? What do we have? Can we change the door
that.
location?
You can see exactly how you fix it.
Yeah. We've had 3 or 4 projects where we've gone through the full BIM coordination. FRAMECAD, one of the cool things that I love is we can actually export a file that's able to be read through any BIM modeling system. And so it's not only, hey, here's generally where the walls are going to be, which is what most people are used to. It's like, no, that's exactly where my stud is, exactly where my screw's going to be.
One of my big ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a, hey, this might be where it is. No, that's exactly what my walls are going to look like coming to you. So if there's an adjustment, let's make it now.
And it really is, that's not a bold statement. That's really the truth.
Yeah.
If we say, if your drawings that we give you says it's 11'7" and 9/16, I was about to say 8/16. Okay, anybody do the math. 9/6. That's exactly what it's going to be. That guy, this millwork contractor, can go. He didn't have to come and field measure anything. No. Order that stuff ahead of time. Again, so all of those things that happen after you, that you're building those efficiencies in.
Yeah, and we're seeing general contractors trying to push that even further, right? So they're saying now, hey, we're doing this BIM coordination ahead of time. We're going to prefabricate walls. We want you to prefabricate plumbing systems.
Yep.
So pre-done, shower valves. Everything's already pre-figured out. Hey, we know where the studs are going to land. Can we land this thing in here? What's the height cut? So that's getting done in a factory as well. So now when that comes to the job site, instead of it taking 4 hours, it takes 15 minutes for them to hook up a shower valve.
Well, you bring
crazy
up
to watch.
Yeah, you bring up the great point that, and especially in being one of the early adopters, Douglas Colony, I'm sure saw this, is that, I got so much egg on my face in the beginning. It was like, man, we're going to just blow up. We're going to shave all this time off your schedule. Yep, and we did. The building was up. But all the MEP guys, every trade contractor behind me had bid it just like they bid everything. and to stay up, they would have had to have doubled their manpower and, all this stuff. So, it is the other trades catching the wave is where this is really going to make the
I think there's
biggest
more gains.
win.
Yeah, and I think there's way more gains that can happen as they, interact with it more. We have a lot of Douglas Colony, we manufacture only, don't self-perform any of the install. We partner with guys to do that if that's needed to give a turnkey solution. But our installers now have suddenly, same thing when they first started, said, okay, we'll see how this goes. And as time's gone on, they're like, no, it's not only saving me time installing it, I follow up with the drywall. I don't have to worry about anything being straight. If it's true, if it's right, I know it's perfect. My guys move quicker. Because they're moving quicker, there's a little bit of cost savings. So I think over time, the gains of those other MEP trades and stuff, once they start working with prefabricated systems, are suddenly going to say, hey, this not going to go fast. It is going faster, not maybe is going to go faster, and that really is going to change it.
Yeah, and I keep, you and I want it to go much faster. We want people to start adopting much faster.
Hurry.
You've been since 2014, let's say. Which is still relative, not that long ago in the construction world.
Industry, yeah.
So Where it gets really interesting to me is getting people to learn, educate, to learn what they don't know about it. Everybody thinks, oh, metal studs, I know all about.
Yeah.
How many of these guys you run into? They've been in construction their whole life. They know everything there is to know about. You're never going to be faster than what I can do with wood and blah, blah, blah. It's just, you run into that all the time.
No, it's constant.
But where this really, I think what is going to help propel this faster, and it already has, is the problem that we have out there right now with skilled labor.
It's crazy.
And by Douglas Colony being a manufacturer of light gauge steel, cold form steel panels, you're able to bring a less skilled worker in and train them in an environment that's much safer, much more controlled, and actually teach them something, not just a construction trade, but man, you can teach them all kinds of things. CAD, design. I mean, it can go in logistics. It can go to any number of places. It's not just a guy that's throwing on tool belt and going out and standing out.
And I think we're hoping that, with the younger generation, I have teenagers, and I think to myself, don't get in the construction industry. I tell them, I remember my mom telling me that when I started to get into the construction industry, like, no, that is not the way to go. And I think more and more parents are telling that to kids. I think that the crisis is going to be, we think it's a crisis now. I'm like, as guys are getting older and having to retire, where's that next pool of guys that we don't have them coming in? And because we're a subcontractor, we've been very, very lucky to be able to stay on top of things on the roofing end and having enough guys. But there's still that worry, and we hear it all the time of general contractors calling us and saying, hey, we went with another guy, and they've got 2 guys on this 10,000 square foot roof. What are we going to do here? Can you help us? And so suddenly it's like, how do you get a younger generation to also want to still participate in construction? Technology, right?
Technology is the key.
It's the key.
That
catch them. And to be able to say, hey, we're working with advanced equipment, advanced machines that, not only can you learn to program them, and there's a process we have to kind of work through them to get up to that guy. Super exciting for them. We're hoping that keeps pushing forward. Yeah, I mean, you said controlled environment is a big deal for the people. It's precise. The laborers that we do have come in, it's amazing to see how quickly they pick up, right?
Oh, sure.
Someone who's never, ever done any kind of type of construction work before, it's like, okay, can you hold a screw gun? Yeah. All right. In 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, you're going to be running and just doing a great job. Happy with what you're doing, not frustrated because you haven't figured out a new skill. We're going to keep you moving along really well, which has been cool. Really cool to watch that.
No,
happen.
that really is one of the joys in this, and again, the technology piece of it, and again, it's still changing. It continues to change very rapidly. And when I see what we were able to do in 2014 and what we were able to do today, I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's just going to be phenomenal. I've got to jump back. We talked about combustible, non-combustible.
Yeah.
You and I chatted about this yesterday. It's not said enough. We all, again, I don't know. I've been very fortunate. I have never lived through a house fire.
Yeah. Hopefully
I've
never.
had a neighbor's house
Hopefully
on
never.
fire.
Yeah.
I mean, so here's a great point. You and I have never experienced it. Yet how many fires are there really? And people, just because we haven't experienced it in our lifetime, thankfully, there's a lot of people that have, and it's devastating. And not just from a residential standpoint, business owners. I couldn't imagine building a multifamily and building it out of sticks that I used to burn, stuff in the backyard. It makes no sense to me. You looked up, you did a little digging on fire.
Yeah, it's a big deal to us. I mean, so in Colorado, we've had, unfortunately, like you said, luckily I haven't experienced it, but 30 miles to the west of me, we had the Louisville Boulder fires, and was that 2 years ago now? Absolutely devastating for a community, right? To see hundreds of homes where people displaced, just a really hard thing. So fire and keeping people safe is not only important to our company, but part of our also other trades that we work with. So we have a metal composite, the exterior skins a building, NFPA, the National Fire Protection Agency. It's kind of the agency that dictates through the IBC codes, what has to happen on the exterior of a building. And so we're working with them constantly through codes to say, hey, is the system we're putting on the outside of this building at a point where it's not going to catch on fire and cause a lot of problems? And I kind of wish I hadn't looked these numbers up, because as I started looking them up, I thought, man, it's way more devastating than I had ever thought. So just some, a lot of these they're updating, so they update about every 3 to 4 years the new stat of a division. Restaurants, on average, 7,500 fires a year happen in restaurants. Of that, there's 165 million of property damage only. So that's only the property. The loss is 165 million. There have been 110 personal injuries and unfortunately 3 deaths that have happened in those 7,500. And that's the average.
Interesting.
Over the years. Hotels, 3,500 fires, 8.4 or 84 million in damages, 120 injured, 9 passed away. Manufactured homes, which I think, I hope there's more discussions through Build It Better.
Yeah, it's
right. We're not doing manufactured homes,
correct,
right? And I think there's this stop. It is kind of funny, as I was thinking, I hear that phrase all the time, manufactured homes. Typed it in on Google.
Yeah, say it.
All of them are built out of wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, none of them are built out of comfort. So just because I'm pre-panelizing, I am not building. Yeah. And it kind of, as I saw it, I kind of was like, well, these are all built out of wood. Yeah, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Don't hate wood. Don't hate wood. Manufactured homes, 11,400 fires, 179 million in property damage. And this is where it gets even harder and more staggering, right? 434 injuries and 206 deaths.
And that's in what time span?
That is year. That's the average yearly. So that every year that happens. So this isn't over a long period of time, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, an average of 5 years is what they look at. And then it gets even crazier. Healthcare, and these are buildings that are up, finished, done, complete, right? People are
not
operating.
During construction.
Not during construction. Healthcare, 5,700 fires, $50.4 billion of property damage. And that's just because of equipment, right? So they've got the, hospital catches on fire and you're like, MRIs and all that stuff goes away, and that's costs out up real quick. Luckily in those scenarios, 157 injuries, only 2 deaths, and that just makes sense because there's a commercial building's a little safer. Under construction, I found that when I saw that, I was like, that's a really interesting one. I wouldn't have thought. Under construction, yearly average 4,300 fires. It's crazy. 376 million in damages, 62 injured, and then 5 deaths in those construction ones. Now, the one that this one blew me away. And I hadn't really thought about this, but it makes sense, right? With those fires in Louisville and the stuff that's happened in California. Homes, the average home amount of times fires happen in homes per year, 343,100 times a year.
That's the average.
That's the average. 7.6 billion in property damages. Usually a house catches on fire, the whole thing's gone. Right.
Here's the one I don't want to hear.
No, and this is the tough one. 11,000 injured, around 11,000 injured, and then 2,600 passed away. A year. Yeah. Crazy.
So it goes back to what I said. If I'm, and again, it's more of an automatic for people to just keep building the way that they've been building.
Yeah, it's worked. It's worked. It's worked. It's been great. It keeps people housed. It's
but
affordable.
When I think about my mother passed away several years ago. But when I think about, having an elderly parent and I'm going to build them a home, why am I going to put them in a matchbox?
Yeah. That
we don't
they're
look
not
at
going to
it.
be able to get
We
out
don't
of.
look at it that
Yeah.
way. Okay, so now that I've said all that and we've talked about how bad and miserable, and it is, it's horrible. Those are the numbers that those insurance adjusters are using
Yeah,
when
that's
you're
what they're
saying,
looking-
when you're coming to them and saying, hey, we're going to build we're going to go from combustible to non-combustible. Hallelujah. Let's save some money. It just blows my mind, and people in thinking about the savings there. What I started to say was, people say, light gauge steel building's going to burn. It's still got drywall. You got curtains on the walls. You've got paint. You got pipes. You got all this stuff. They're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
Is it going to burn as fast as a wood framed building?
definitely not.
I think what you would see, and one of the things that I would love to see them dig into with these stats is and again, some of it is because there's not a lot of light gauge steel homes or residences out there, but what's the difference in the injured and the death toll? That's what I would, your property damage, you're going to have a lot of smoke damage.
Yeah,
You're going to have a lot of that. If it gets hot enough, you're going to have steel studs are going to twist and melt and, whatever. All that's going to happen. But we're not adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah. And I was going to say,
which is huge.
NFPA, I think that's one of their pushes, right, where we're working with the exterior of the building, right, and skinning the building. Their big push is it needs to be a non-combustible material. It can't be a combustible material.
Right.
They had, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, in Asia, they had an exterior of a building that had some super combustible insulation, and it caught the whole entire 36-story building on fire. And so it's something crazy, like 15 minutes, the whole outside of the building was on fire. And so their push really is like you said, is to say we need to get non-combustible materials, because could it burn? Yes. Is there going to be some damage? Yeah. But the amount of time that you allow people to be able to get themselves safe is significant and worth the willingness to say, hey, and in these tests that we have to do for those exterior skins, right? At the end of it, the fire's there, it's burning, it pulls away from the building in a non-combustible material, right? It's charred, it's black, but it's still standing, right?
That's the big thing.
Yeah, to get the heat to the point where you're going to be melting steel, can it happen? Yes, I'd like to know what the hell they had inside of the building.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to get it to a point where it's, at a malleable state. But hopefully the industry and people see that savings. I know in homes, one of the big challenges right now it's so in Colorado specifically, in those areas where the fire had happened and kind of are higher risk, they have insurance companies just walking away from people. Yeah, just saying like, no, we just can't insure it. It's too much. It's too much. We're out of here.
It's been in the news.
Yeah.
One of the things that we don't experience out here on our end, but in Florida certainly does, hurricanes, high winds.
Yeah.
Again, light gauge steel is great. Yeah, it's a great building product for that. We're finding it. California, all the wildfires in California, we're finding a lot of municipalities that are now coming back and saying, no. We're not going to just do this over again and over again.
Definition of insanity, right?
Yeah, you can't build this way anymore. We got to change something. So, what do you see I'll change this up a little bit. So, what are the possibilities? What do you see on the horizon for cold form steel? What do you?
Oh man, we had a convention recently where a bunch of FRAMECAD guys got together and kind of talked about stuff. Totally opened my eyes. Where don't I see it? There are guys that are using cold form steel to prefabricate gigantic soffits in hotels, ornate things that you would think in your head, hey, there's no way that you can prefabricate and build this out of cold form steel. These are all custom handwork things that are being done on a job site. Big, massive, cool draw soffits with a lot of architectural features in there. I think homes is a big place where things can go. I don't see any architectural, again, usually we find often people also say, hey, it's cold form steel. You can't You can't do the architectural things that you
Oh
can do
man, how am I
with
going to
wood.
attach my fascia to the? But it's like
the screw the same way.
Yeah.
Just the fastener, just like you did with the other. And so I think homes is a big place that really not a lot of gains have been made in cold form steel, and probably has the biggest market share.
Yeah, I would agree.
To be able to jump into. We're seeing things. DIA, the airport in Denver. DEN. It's called DEN now. It's not DIA.
Gotcha. Yeah.
DEN. We're doing a lot of prefabricated backup systems for other, metal wall panel systems just to help the project move along. So things that are non-structural that people a lot of the times wouldn't have thought to panelize, we're doing that. I really think if you can stick build it, there's a way out of wood. There's a way to use cold form steel, panelize, and get it to a job site and save tons of time, right? It's not only just moving to cold form steel, it's also saying, hey, let's move that to panelizing, because that's really where we're seeing the extra gains, right? There's a lot of, benefits to switching to cold form steel, the longevity, the strength, all those things. But then it's like, hey, let's take this one step further, start panelizing it. And now you're saving time on the job site, which is really where it costs the
Right.
most.
So
That's
we've
where it costs the
spent
most.
all this time talking about cold form steel, and again, we are powered by FRAMECAD here, and you've now touched on the one that really brings it all together. So it's not just a superior building product. Okay, we'll agree.
Okay.
We think we've proven that, but the technology that allows you to take coils of steel, form those building components, the software to panelize, to design it to exacting dimensions, and build it and panelize it and send it out and install it. You're doing everything offsite while they're putting in all of their fire lines and water lines and water detention tanks and pouring their slab. You're framing their building.
And concurrent construction.
And that is where, like when I saw it the first time, I thought, why haven't we done this forever?
Yeah, why aren't we?
We're a very, very intelligent society. Why are we having such problems with it? And what you have is, you've already talked about it with manufactured housing. You've got the people out there that have been doing everything with wood since 1924 saying, okay, let's prefabricate. Let's continue to do it with wood. And yet now you've got framed panels that are going out to a job site that have been sitting in somebody's yard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not only has it been framed and sitting out in the weather, it's been framed and just stacked in the weather. It's a canoe. It goes right back to nature. So,
and the sustainability, we talked about the sustainability of the two products, and the big push with wood right now is, hey, we're super sustainable because, we can keep planting trees. I say, yeah, but those trees are younger. And if you've actually worked with wood, what you've realized over the last 20 years is that now I'm getting younger trees, which aren't as strong, aren't as straight, and you're drying them so fast in a factory to try to get them to speed to market, right? That now that product is not what it was 20, and we don't even want to go back 100 years ago, right? It is warped and twisted. We have this thing, and they kind of call it something different in every state, I've noticed. In Colorado, we call it shave and shim. So there's this process through an apartment complex where it's like, hey, yeah, we got it framed. Oh, but you can't drywall because we need to go through and make sure shave and shim, make sure the walls are actually straight. And the amount of savings as we're talking to customers, that's one that a lot of the times I don't look at them like, how much time did you spend on your last wood building shave and shimming?
Correct.
Months, literally months, 2-3 months. And I'm like, 0. Let's spend 0 time doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to panelize this wall. Our tolerances are going to be within 1/8 of an inch for the overall panel. Stud location is going to be 1 millimeter. It's perfect, and it's straight and true. And the only way it's getting deformed is because you ran over it with something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But don't worry, we can take care of you and have a quick process to get those back. You talked about waste. I think that's another one that even traditional cold form framing, you're buying from a guy stud lengths that are pre-cut. You're still having to take those to a job site, still having to cut those, still having waste. Whereas with the FRAMECAD system, right, it's punching exact lengths, dimensions, everything's done. 2% waste is what we say. I think on some jobs we see more of a savings. I think 2% is a good average that we've seen. I grew up, I've been in construction since I was a teenager. My brother kind of got me into it and made me go to his general contractor and made me work for him. And I cut cold form steel studs. I remember the first time I saw the FRAMECAD machines. We'd got them as a company. I was working in a different division of the company. Walked back there, saw them roll out studs, and just thought in my head, all of the years I had stood behind a metal chop saw cutting an inch, 2 inches off of a stud, how loud, annoying, the sparks kicking back, like none of that. I don't have to do any of that. Why? Like, I actually called them up and was like, dude, we got this new thing. You got to see this. Because this is going to be crazy that we'll be able to move to a point where, hey, I can send you pre-packaged walls for the interior of a building. Your guys don't have to cut anything. They can stick them together, stand them up, and be done.
Get out of there.
And it's safer for your guys. It's faster for you.
That's one of the things that we're trying to do, that we're really trying to focus at FrameCAD now about is driving customer success. It's more than just a system. We want to really help make, which is something that we're improving, that we're wanting to do better than we've ever done before, and that is help people become successful faster by getting more involved, sharing stuff like this, conversations. When I got in it, it was like, here's the machine, go figure it out.
Good luck.
How much do we charge? How long is it going to take? All of these things that the Douglas colonies of this world that have been at it since 2014 have figured out, and you're looking at it now today in 2023, and really how far ahead of the curve you guys are.
Yeah, luckily our president's vision was good. I'm very grateful for that, to be able to indoctrinate and have it happen quicker.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, I think the possibilities. I don't think we've even scratched the surface.
Oh no, it's
so far. And not only moving buildings to cold form framing, but moving them to panelizing and saying, hey, there's a way to be able to. We preach all the time. 14,000 square feet is usually what we'll see a crew do on a big multifamily. They'll get 14,000 square foot of building done in a week. And always have general contractors that say, yeah, well, I do that all the time with my wood buildings. All the time. We're doing 20,000. I say, okay, so one, I drove by your job site a couple weeks ago. It sure doesn't look like you're getting it done that quick. That's another discussion. How many guys did you have on the job
you had
site?
150 people on it.
Yeah, exactly. 8. Like there's 8 guys at the job site. So we're also hitting the curve of saying, okay, the construction industry is going to have a manpower issue that isn't going to go away quickly. We've got to do something else to adjust for that, because buildings can't, no owner, no one's going to want to be able to say, oh, sure, I'll finance my building for another year and a half. You don't have the guys, it'll be fine. What do we do there? So I think that pushing that possibility forward, we're just scratching the surface. I'm excited to kind of see what new innovative things can happen. Again, you talked about full wall panels and things like that. There's a lot that I think has come down the line.
Okay. We could talk forever. Unfortunately, we can't probably keep people's attention forever. Man, it's been great having you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been awesome.
I knew that once we got started, we would just keep going. And and I know that we literally could go on for hours and hours.
All day.
We're just passionate about it. But thanks much. We'll definitely do this again. May even do something again where we, have you with 1 or 2 others and maybe do a little panel discussion. It's so fun to hear what other people are doing. You've built it the old way. Now go build it better. See you next time.